the foundations of the collective unconscious. Welcome to this quiet exploration of the deeper regions of human consciousness. Tonight, we'll journey together through the landscape Carl Jung mapped for us, moving slowly through concepts that have shaped our understanding of dreams, myths, and the hidden architecture of the mind. Let yourself settle in, and allow these ideas to wash over you like gentle waves. The origin of Jung's collective unconscious. Carl Jung first proposed the concept of the collective unconscious in the early S, distinguishing it from Freud's personal unconscious. While the personal unconscious contains forgotten or repressed material from an individual's life, Jung observed that certain images and patterns appeared across cultures with no direct contact. He theorized that beneath our personal memories lies a deeper stratum, inherited and universal, containing the psychological residue of humanity's entire evolutionary journey. Archetypes as structural elements. The collective unconscious isn't filled with specific memories, but rather with what Jung called archetypes, universal patterns or prototypes of experience. Think of them as empty forms, like riverbeds waiting for water. These archetypes shape how we experience fundamental human situations: birth and death, the hero's quest, the search for meaning, the encounter with the divine. They are the organizing principles of our psychic life, inherited structures that predispose us to experience the world in characteristically human ways. The shadow's essential nature. The shadow archetype represents everything we've disowned about ourselves, the aspects of personality we've deemed unacceptable and pushed into darkness. Yet Jung emphasized that the shadow isn't purely negative. It contains not only our destructive impulses but also our creative potential, our vitality, and qualities that simply didn't fit the persona we developed to navigate social life. Meeting the shadow, Jung argued, is the first essential step in what he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. The anima and animus as inner partners. Within each person, Jung identified a contrasexual archetype. In men, the anima represents the unconscious feminine dimension, often first projected onto women in their lives. In women, the animus embodies unconscious masculine qualities. These aren't about biological sex but about psychological principles, receptivity and assertiveness, feeling and thinking, relatedness and independence. Integration of these inner figures leads to psychological balance and the capacity for genuine relationship with others. The self as the central archetype. At the center of Jung's understanding of the psyche sits the self, distinct from the ego. While the ego is our conscious identity, the limited sense of I we carry through daily life, the self represents the totality of the psyche, both conscious and unconscious. Jung often represented the self through mandala symbols, circles containing squares, quaternities, or other balanced forms. The self acts as an organizing center, guiding the personality toward wholeness and expressing itself most clearly in the second half of life. Synchronicity and meaningful coincidence. Jung developed the concept of synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences that couldn't be explained by causality. When an inner psychological state corresponds with an outer event, and the connection feels deeply significant, Jung saw this as evidence that psyche and matter aren't separate realms. These causal connecting principles suggested to him that consciousness and the physical world share a common ground, particularly accessible in states of heightened emotion or psychological transformation. The process of individuation. Individuation describes the lifelong journey towards psychological wholeness. It isn't about perfection but about becoming more fully oneself, integrating the various aspects of personality that have been split off or denied. This process typically intensifies in midlife, when the values and goals of youth no longer satisfy. Jung saw individuation as both a psychological and a spiritual process, involving the gradual realization that the ego isn't the center of personality, and the development of a relationship with the deeper self. Complexes as splinter psyches. Jung discovered that the psyche organizes itself into complexes, clusters of emotionally charged thoughts, feelings, and memories organized around a central theme. We all have complexes. A mother complex, for instance, constellates around experiences and archetypes related to mothering, nurturing, and being nurtured. When a complex is activated, we may feel temporarily possessed, acting in ways that seem foreign to our usual personality. Understanding our complexes allows us to recognize when we're in their grip. The transcendent function. Jung described the transcendent function within the psyche that mediates between conscious and unconscious, between opposing tendencies within us. When we face an inner conflict that consciousness cannot resolve, holding the tension without forcing a solution allows something new to emerge from the unconscious. This third thing transcends the original opposition. Active imagination, dream work, and creative expression all engage this function, allowing transformation rather than mere compromise. The objective psyche. Jung came to view the psyche as having an objective reality, not merely as a byproduct of brain chemistry or personal history. The psyche exists in its own right, with its own laws and tendencies. Just as we don't create our bodies but inherit their structure, we don't create the deep patterns of the psyche. This perspective invites humility before the mystery of consciousness and suggests that psychological life involves listening to something larger than the ego's preferences. The language of dreams. As we move deeper into this exploration, let's turn our attention to dreams, those nightly visitors that have puzzled and fascinated humans since the beginning of consciousness. Jung approached dreams with a profound respect, seeing them not as disguises for forbidden wishes but as honest messengers from the unconscious, speaking in a symbolic language all their own. Dreams as compensatory. Jung observed that dreams often compensate for one-sided attitudes in waking consciousness. If we're too inflated, confident that we have everything figured out, dreams may present humiliating scenarios. If we're crushed by self-doubt, dreams might show us images of strength or capability. This compensatory function aims at balance, helping the whole psyche maintain equilibrium. Dreams don't simply mirror our waking state, they present what consciousness is missing, what we need to see for wholeness. The symbolic language of the unconscious. Unlike signs, which point to known things, symbols in dreams point towards something unknown, something not yet fully graspable by consciousness. A lion in a dream isn't just a lion, it carries meanings around power, instinct, royalty, danger, all of which resonate with something in the dreamer's psychological situation. Jung emphasized that we can't create a universal dream dictionary because symbols gain their specific meaning through the dreamer's personal associations and the dream's context. The perspective function of dreams. Beyond compensating for conscious attitudes, Jung noticed that dreams sometimes have a perspective function, sketching out possible future developments. These aren't prophecies of external events but rather rehearsals of psychological possibilities, showing where the psyche might be heading. A dream of preparing for a journey, for instance, might indicate an impending psychological transformation, a movement into new territory of the self. Amplification as method. To understand a dream, Jung developed a method of amplification. Rather than free associating away from the dream image as Freud suggested, Jung recommended circling around it, gathering parallels from mythology, fairy tales, religious traditions, and world literature. If someone dreams of a serpent, exploring serpent symbolism across cultures, the wisdom of the snake in Eden, the healing serpent of Asclepius, the Kundalini serpent of yoga, enriches understanding of what the image might mean for this particular dreamer. Big dreams and little dreams. Jung distinguished between ordinary dreams and what he called big dreams, dreams with a numinous quality, often remembered for a lifetime. Big dreams frequently appear at transition points and draw heavily on archetypal imagery. They feel different, carrying a weight and intensity that demands attention. These dreams often occur in childhood, adolescence, midlife, or when facing death, and they seem to come not just from the personal unconscious but from the deeper collective layers. The dream ego. The ego that appears in dreams, the I who experiences the dream, isn't identical to our waking ego. The dream ego often acts strangely, accepting impossible situations or lacking the will or ability to intervene in events. Jung saw this as significant. The dream ego's limitations often point to where our waking ego needs to develop. If the dream ego is passive while terrible things happen, perhaps the waking ego needs to develop more agency or self-assertion. Recurring dreams and their meaning. When a dream repeats, Jung viewed this as the unconscious insisting on a message that hasn't been heard. The repetition often continues until the dreamer integrates the dream's insight or changes the attitude the dream is compensating for. Sometimes recurring dreams shift slightly over time, showing the dreamer's progress in grappling with a psychological challenge. The end of a recurring dream often marks a significant developmental achievement. Dream series as narrative. Jung preferred working with dream series rather than isolated dreams. Over weeks or months, dreams reveal a narrative arc, themes develop and transform, and the movement of the psyche becomes visible. What seems obscure in a single dream often clarifies when placed in context with preceding and following dreams. This sequential view shows not just the psyche's current state but its direction, its process of becoming. Active imagination with dream figures. Jung developed active imagination as a technique to continue engagement with dream figures while awake. In a meditative state, one invites a dream character into dialogue, allowing it to speak and respond, observing where the interaction spontaneously leads. This isn't mere fantasy, it requires maintaining consciousness while allowing the unconscious to express itself. Through active imagination, dream figures reveal more of what they represent, and relationship with unconscious contents deepens. Nightmares as urgent messages. Jung understood nightmares as particularly urgent communications from the unconscious. The terrifying effect isn't meant to torment but to ensure the dream is noticed and taken seriously. Often nightmares present what consciousness most wants to avoid: the shadow in its rawest form, the consequences of current life directions, or archetypal powers that have been neglected. Working with nightmares, though uncomfortable, often yields the most profound insights and catalyzes necessary change. If this moment of quiet resonated with you, consider liking the video and subscribing for more gentle explorations of consciousness.